you know, in 2004, it was all like short hair. You had to be like pretending like you didn't want to play music, and it was like, oh, I can't play, dong, 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 but they can't play. I just woke up looking like this.
Hi, I'm Liberty from Enemy, and I'm here with Tobias Forge from Ghost. Tobias, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm very happy to be here. So last time we spoke to Enemy, it was around the release of Right Here, Right Now. Now we're back with two big new announcements. We've got the new frontman and we've got the new album. Let's start with the latter. Tell me about what we can expect from Skeletá.
I mean, that's always a hard question for me to. I'm not a great salesman. The previous record was written with a very socially reflective, bigger picture, sort of shining a light onto society. So I felt that making a new record it didn't feel very, I wasn't very enthused by the idea of writing another record that was going to be a follow-up, just an Impera 2. I wanted the new record to be something else, as I've always tried to sort of move along and do something that's different from the previous. So I felt that I wanted to make a record that was a little bit more based on introspection and maybe some more core. I am a believer that most history have a tendency to circle around, and both good and bad. So of course, big societal and structural critique is probably an evergreen subject if you want to write, conscious rock. But then there's this eternal human elements of it that is equally important, with more basic feelings. So I went into the writing process with the intention of writing a song, one love song, one hate song, one hope song, one regret song, and all kinds of basic human sentiments.
Tell me a little bit about the new frontman. So what went into both designing him and also in terms of what he adds to the Ghost lore in this ever-going story?
I can't really say much until, in this case, he has been able to strut around for a while and found his place. So I can't really like make a profile description of who he is. Weirdly enough, we have a real band story and we have a lore, where the lore serves as some sort of humoristic commentary, but also follows along a little bit of the subjects presented on the record, as opposed to public sometimes misunderstanding that it's all about Satan. It's actually all about as a human being alive, which is, a very simple but hugely broad concept. And so is the characters within the lore. They are humans with the same treats, fears, and needs as everyone else, and also are, searching for a sense of purpose.
When it comes to designing a character like that, how much of yourself do you allow to seep in? Obviously, beyond the storytelling and beyond the visuals, is there an element of wanting to keep yourself distant from the person who thousands of people see on the stage?
My therapist would probably say that, yeah. I've always intuitively felt that I had a mission to act, but that anything I would act as on stage playing music was going to be in the form of some sort of character. I mean, I think most I think that there are a lot of artists that does that, even though they are, almost to the point of confusion, very much alike their character, whereas I have created this literally this other person that is not here today. I am just the spokesperson for this whatever it is, a band lore character. I think for me it's this idea that you want the, I don't want to say product, but you want the end result to be something that more closely resembles what you or what I feel is an interesting thing. Of course, when it comes to actual writing, when it comes to actual storytelling, writing songs, as most other songwriters, you write what you see and what you feel and what you wanna relay to others. And I have not yet I'm not, maybe on the first record that was a little bit more distant. That was a little bit more fiction, if you will. There was social commentary on that one too. It also had a certain sting of dual messaging that became much more evident, like, going forward. But that was also because the first record was written in a vacuum where I had no idea that there was going to be anything. I mean, it was just like completely soul driven, lust driven project of writing songs. And then as that project, as that collection of songs with that image happened to become the one thing that made my dream come true of becoming a professional musician. I felt that one, I don't think anybody will applaud if I just start repeating that in ad nauseum, because that is, even though even though in metal circuits where sort of authenticity is measured by your repetitiveness, that's simply not true. That's something that a lot of people say. I only like them when they're. I only like them. I'm like that too. I only like that record. I only like that. I preferred them when they were like this. But it's also comforting that they are moving ahead, because then that means that you can preserve the thing that you like. And so even in hard rock and the more narrow Puritan circles of when they want things to be just stale and still and not move anywhere, you will not go anywhere if you just repeat yourself. So I felt like I'm not going to worry about that. I know I am authentic. I'm just going to follow my heart. And now when I have all these people interested in what I'm saying, I'm going to say something more interesting. I can't just repeat um, the same fictional stuff.
Is that something that you predicted was going to happen, or was maybe part of a plan? Because of course you had other bands before you had Ghost. When it came to starting Ghost, could you see this journey?
No.
You didn't have that in mind. It was just going with the flow, and this is how it's evolved.
Yes. I mean, for me, it was an absolutely explosive event, simply because I had been in bands before. That was always like a slow tug, as it should be. I guess. But I was moving around in underground circles for most of my adolescence, and even in underground circles, you can obviously, there's a difference between being completely unknown and being successful, even though if you're a death metal band. And of course, I've always wanted to be as efficient and successful as possible. When I was playing underground death metal, it wasn't like I didn't want to succeed. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be on a real label. I wanted to be out touring. And then as I was sort of drifting away a little bit from the more extreme metal, at least from like what I played, and parallel to that, I started writing Ghost songs, but I also wrote different things. And for a long time, I think I was under the belief that one, I was going to be a guitar player only. I wanted to be, to compare it to something like a John Frusciante. I wanted to be like the guitar player behind a singer who sings like great harmonies. And you know, in the 2000s, obviously enemy readers know this very well. In the 2000s, when I was, you know, in my 20s, there was this huge rock wave. Like you had all the big Strokes, Franz Ferdinand's, Kaiser Chiefs. Like it was just rock all over the place. And I was one of those who was sort of like, okay, I think that this might be something. And then I learned very quickly that if you see the wave, you've missed it. And so I was sort of struggling with that, like, you know, how do I find my place? The band that I was working with at that point was, you know, in 2004, it was all like short hair. You had to be like pretending like you didn't want to play music. And it was like, oh, I can't play, dong, 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 but they can't play. I just woke up looking like this. Not true. They made an effort. And we had a little bit too long hair. So we were a little bit too metal. So that was not like indie enough. So that was like a struggle. I was sort of struggling through my 20s. Towards the end of it, I think I had, you know, constantly writing songs for that, and this project called Ghost. And, you know, from obviously being a teenager and a 20 something, you know, constantly available for the big career, single, no job, just waiting for the big break. I had sort of slowly transgressed into someone who was actually a partner and had 2 children. And somewhere there, I, depending on who you ask, you know, friends of mine who was like, just give up on that fucking dream. You're not, it's not happening. And no one really told me that, but I felt at a certain point that I probably will not be a musician. And if I'm gonna live without having realized my dream, I need to have a hobby. I need to have some sort of outlet for my creativity, albeit having a normal job and being a family father and all that stuff. Which was very much, you know, it was not an accidental family making. It was the children were planned and loved and very welcomed. But I myself as a professional, I myself as a, you know, father, a friend, felt very, there was something amiss. And out of all the things that I was working on, Ghost was definitely the one thing that I felt like, if I'm going to do one thing for 5% of my life, I want to do that. That was the only thing that felt like, that's the only thing I understand. Everything else was sort of, ugh, not really worth the attention. Whereas this I understood. And I think that part of that was because it was wrapped in a in another face. It was literally like someone else. Even though this box with this horror wrapping was containing basically everything that I am interested in. It's rock music, metal, AOR, vocals, heavy guitars, horror, occult imagery, all those things. Everything I like. Perfect hobby. I'm going to put everything, every spare hour I have, I'm going to put on that. And hopefully that can amount to something that will satisfy my creative needs.
It feels like film has always been a big source of inspiration for you. Was there either a point when you were younger when you contemplated taking that as a route, or maybe even more recently thinking that maybe you can juggle the two, going to working in film, maybe doing scores, pulling a bit of a Trent Reznor? Has that crossed the mind?
Absolutely. I mean, I have always been almost equally interested in film as I've been in music. And I don't know really if it's hard to say sometimes how you thought simply because I'm not a very scholastic person. I've never been, and I am sort of self-learned, if you will. I'm very interested in a lot of things. So anything that I'm interested in, I will focus on and I will absorb. But anything that I'm not interested in, I'm simply not able to learn. So quite quickly in school, I hit the ceiling in terms of how far I could evolve scholastically. Simply because the more human subjects, language and history and things that obviously history is frozen in time, if you will, but it's there's still an interpretational aspect of it, whereas in math there is not. Biology and chemistry and all that stuff is not. And I have a hard time with that sort of thing. So and when you're bad at math and those heavy subjects, you simply disqualify yourself pretty quickly from going forward scholastically. Unfortunately, I think that that is wrong, but because I think that there's a lot of brain power and a lot of potential in a lot of kids who are good at other things. I knew that there was there was a certain degree of scholasticism that needed to go into making film. I know now that that's not necessarily true. Uh, the same way that you don't have to be technical to become a record producer because you always have someone else there who knows how to handle the studio. I am very much like that too. If I come into a studio and someone asks me to turn it on, I don't really know how to do that. But once you get everything turned on and everything is on and you have a technician, I know exactly how to make a record. If a band wants me to produce them, I can do that. I know how to do that, but I don't know how to record you. And I know that there are directors or script writers that have the same thing, that they've never went to film school. But earlier in my life, I saw a venture down that route was like that's gonna take away from my music, and that means that I need to start studying, beyond my more technical stuff, and I'm not interested in that. So that was a hindrance. Nowadays, though, when I have, dipped my feet a little into the film world, and I think I'm beginning to recognize where there might be a spot for me where I can um, where my strength, my USP can be valuable. I believe that I can go down that route a little.
Looking at Ghost, I feel like anyone who's come across Ghost has seen the massive impact that they've had on the metal scene, and it's in a way that I don't think any other bands in recent memory have had. Looking at the growth, so from the early days and all the way through to now, the production, the music, the way it resonates with fans, is there an end sight that you can think of, or like a milestone that you could hit and think, okay, I've done everything I wanted to do with Ghost? Or is it always going to be a continuous journey for you?
There might be an end of the storytelling, because it's just simply not productive to sort of have this endless soap opera. If fans need the lore in order to like the band, then that'll probably be over quite soon. If there is a way where the music and everything I can create, I've created, is enough and that is enjoyable, I think I am as needy as anybody other artist, in the sense that, what do you call it, like as statistical milestones that you want to achieve, or in this case, there of course there are places that I want to play, venues, things that you just want under, another feather in your hat of having done that. Um, I am, very lucky that I've been able to achieve many of those things. But of course, there are levels of success that you still want to achieve. For the last decade or so, I don't know if there's been uh, this ongoing chatter in the music business, and especially in the rock business, that, oh, there's no new bands coming, like rock will die, rock is dead. No new bands can become big. And we, as well as a few others, are living proof that that is not true. I'm not saying that you can become a new AC/DC. Um, you cannot become a new Metallica. But I think um, we are living proof of that you still can do it. There are other bands around, like very much more recent, like Sleep Token, who's obviously, you know, they're succeeding, so obviously you can become a bigger band. And then Rammstein for a long, long time has been, they've been a household name for many, many years. But they were, uh, in the greater scheme of rock, where there are levels, they were just an arena band for a very long time. They sold out arenas all over the place. And they were very well known for their big show, but they were playing arenas. If they were playing outdoors, they would be a festival. And then all of a sudden, they decided to do the stadium tour. And all of a sudden, they went from, 10, 15,000 every night to 55,000 3 nights in a row. Where did all those people come from? If you just want to talk sheer, like, achievements, I would love to make that journey. That would be fantastic. Simply because I'm very interested in stage production. And where I started with stage production, like where my fascination really exploded into obsessive fandom, was in the 80s, when I saw specifically Rolling Stones. First I saw the, Let's Spend the Night Together. Production of that outdoor production wasn't, it was cool, it wasn't elaborate, but when I was 8 years old, they released Steel Wheels. I was a huge fan at the point, and they did a tour called the Steel Wheels Tour through America. If you guys think that Rammstein's stage was cool, Steel Wheels Tour, that's the biggest behemoth of industrial um, staging I've ever seen. And that's basically where I sort of set the standard. Like, that is the pinnacle. Like, being able to build this giant thing that people come and it just takes over a city. It's and ever since I started going to shows and going to see big shows, um, you know, bands like Rolling Stones in the 90s, and Metallica, and all those things that was coming through. I've always been obsessed with, that idea of being that traffic diverting turmoil that comes in and disrupts a city the way that they did. When Metallica played Stockholm Stadium in 1993, it was like the show wasn't there. The show started, I mean, we're talking blocks, we're talking like miles away, because all over town, Metallica fans were sort of coming on the subways and trains and buses, walking. And the closer you got, every bar was playing Metallica music. And it's a beautiful day.
Speaking of these massive bands, just to wrap up, because I think we're running out of time, we've got one coming up with that massive Black Sabbath show. Tell me, why was it important for you to say yes to that? What does the band mean to you? And what can we expect from your set then?
Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne has been a tremendous influence on me. Ozzy as a frontman, Ozzy as a solo artist, and I put a little bit of a divide between it, because he was, I grew up in the 80s, and he was much more of a present rock star of the 80s than Black Sabbath were, even though they were obviously active, but they were, if Ozzy was like on a big widespread in OK magazine in Sweden, you'd have Black Sabbath with a new singer. It's sort of tucked in the back. So as a kid, of course, I sort of gravitated towards that, but I also grew up listening to the old Black Sabbath records. So the rock stariness of Ozzy's 80s combined with especially the writing I love nowadays I love most Ozzy or most Black Sabbath records. A lot of the 80s stuff, even the 90s stuff. I love them for what they are, and Dio era also has a very special place in my heart. But that's Dio, Sabbath. Black Sabbath with Ozzy is like, for me, it's almost two different bands. Like, it's two different things. But very quickly when I was a kid, just because I always loved quite elaborate music. I liked Kinks too. I like simple, like easy, like quick songs. I like punk rock. But I've always loved when Black Sabbath just went from the two first records that's sort of sludgy to when they became the big progressive, more mature. I understand now that it was obviously very infused and fueled by a lot of substance. I'm not sure if they knew what they were doing, but Volume 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Sabotage are absolute milestones, and have been for as long as I've been writing music. They've been very influential, even though it might not be super evident. But I've always listened to that. I've always been inspired by, and you might say that, as far as introspection goes and being a little bit more brave lyrically, I find like Geezer's lyrics have always been much more naked and brave than he's getting credit for. Most metal fans are like, yeah, Sabbath, and it's like only the heaviness, but it has so much more. Heaviness is great, but there's so much more on that in that kitchen. There's not only meat and potatoes. There's a lot of other seasonings and very nice wine.
Okay, lovely. Tobias, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.